Almost 4 years ago, cartoons of Muhammed were published in the Danish newspaper Jyllands-Posten. Muslims around the world reacted with violence and the demand that it be a crime to speak against Islam. Last night, a debate was held with Flemming Rose, the publisher of the cartoons, touching on the subject of freedom of speech. Aaron Deutsch reports.
Orwell, among other things, wrote that freedom only means something if it implies the right to say to people what they do not want to hear.
The cartoons of Muhammed, published in the Jyllands-Posten almost 4 years ago, brought responses ranging from praise to violence, but raised larger issues of censorship and freedom of speech.
The birth of the internet and the digital revolution means that what is being published in a Danish newspaper in a language that very few people understand, can travel several thousand kilometers in a split second and appear in a very different context with very different interpretations. How do we, in this kind of situation, safeguard the fundamental liberties and freedom that serve as the foundation of a liberal democracy?
It's good to meet and to talk about freedom of expression in the press and outside of the press, because this freedom is the basis of our life here on Earth.
If you look at the cartoon crisis and the violence that followed the publication of the cartoons and the debate, all the violence, in fact, happened in countries that do not have freedom of expression.
In Western Europe, where some liberal media did show a considerable degree of cowardice in condemning this episode, that I'm hoping they might pay attention to that this can be openly debated and openly discussed without fear and without kowtowing to terror.
Since the Muhammad cartoon controversy, some European countries, such as the Netherlands, have taken harsh action against cartoonists who create work which doesn't show Muslims in a positive light, such as Gregory Neshocht, who was incarcerated and brought up on criminal charges for some of his cartoons.
He was taken into custody, he was arrested. He spent 30 hours in a prison cell in Amsterdam, and he was questioned with the rights of a suspect. Around the same time as Neshocht was arrested, the Dutch Minister of Justice wrote a note to Parliament in which he asked them to consider a stifling of the blasphemy law in the Netherlands.
One of the arguments in support of the stronger blasphemy law is it will prevent a repeat of the murder of Theo van Gogh, who was cut down in Amsterdam for making a film critical of Islam's treatment of women.
And the logic goes as follows: if we had had a tougher blasphemy law, the movie by Theo van Gogh would have been banned, so it would never have been released and shown, and then he would have stayed alive. I find it absurd.
Muslims, but particularly the OIC, have pushed to ban criticism of Islam.
Since 1999, when the OIC first proposed a resolution at the UN Human Rights Committee, as it was called at that time, pushing the notion of defamation of religion. What is behind this is the notion that it is not human beings who enjoy human rights, but it is cultures, religions, certain versions of history, and so on and so forth.
Muslim students showed up at the event and attacked Flemming Rose for publishing the cartoons, a discussion which continued after the presentation had ended.
You have juxtaposed the anti-Israel cartoons with the anti-Muhammad cartoons, and I don't think that this is the same thing, because this is politics and this is the role model of 1.5 billion people living in this world.
I cannot apologize for my right to publish what I think needs to come into the paper. But you know, every day when I read the newspaper, I'm offended. I mean, my feelings are offended. But it doesn't mean that I tell the editor you should not publish this.
And I'm very glad that there were some Arab students here in the audience this evening, and they could ask their questions, and they could discuss with us after this debate, because I think that the best way to debate in a civilized way.